Hey everybody, so I'm going to do a quick recording of an Magic the Gathering EDH deck that I built. Those of you who don't like it, don't worry about it, it's cool. But I hope this helps some people who don't know what half these cards are. So the EDH deck we're looking at is Atrixa. A lot of people have used her in different ways. I use her not in a Super Friends way, but in a broken calculator token deck. So without further ado, let's get right into what this looks like. So our champion, of course, of this deck, the one we're using for our commander, is in this mess. We have 8 artifacts, 32 creatures, 8 enchantments, 7 instants, 38 lands, 2 planeswalkers, and 6 sorceries here. So I'll go over this real quick before we show a little bit of how the game play, well, the actual deck plays. We're using Cockatrice, a very interesting program. Our commander, of course, is Atrixa, Praetor's Voice. 4/4 flying, cost 4, has vigilance, death touch, lifelink, and at the beginning of your end step, you proliferate, which is crazy sauce in here. Um, So yeah, this is our champion. She is good stuff. So I'm not going to go over all the cards here, but you can see we have everything listed here, all the cards in the deck. What I'll do is I'll just kind of go through the motions of how this works in a game here. So okay, so when you play commander, of course you start with 40 life, not 20. Of course, we wouldn't have 101 cards in the deck. We would only have 100 because you would have your commander set out automatically. So let's go ahead and find her real quick. Here she is, and she's on the table. Okay, so you can see over here has the whole description about her. Okay, so she is our commander, and we'll go ahead and shuffle this a couple of times just to make sure it's nice and shuffled because we don't want any crappy or broken draws. So yeah, shuffle it about 4 or 5 times. Okay. So let's go ahead and draw our beginning hand of 7 and see what our deck gives us. Alright, what are we looking at? So we have a Doom Blast, which is a sorcery. You can choose up to one creature, destroy the rest. This is if you're in a bad spot and you need to kill everything on the board, you choose one of your creatures and everything else dies, basically. Board wipe, disgusting. Bane of the Living, 4 casting cost, 4/3 insect, has morph, which means if you pay the 2 and X, you may cast a card face down as a 2/2 creature for 3 colorless, and then you turn it face up. Now, the morph cost is 2 black X. So what it means is when you pay the 2 black and X, when it gets turned face up, all creatures get -X, -X until end of turn. It's really good for clearing boards, really good of getting indestructible things off the board. It's just an all around good utility creature. And plus it's 4/3 for 4, which is disgusting. We also have one of the legendary creatures that sits in this deck called Ikra, the Usurper. Has Menace, which is the colors basically can't block her unless you have those colors. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness, and has partner, which means if your commander and it both have partner, then you can have 2 commanders. So if she had commander, then you and this has no, if this has partner and this has partner, then they both start here, and you can cast both of them from this from this board. And if they die, they just go back to the commander's zone, so they never go to the graveyard, which is absurd. Um, of course, we have Darksteel Ingot, staple card for EDH. Swamp, which is basic land, and a Temple of the False Gods, which is another staple card. And the other legendary creature we got blessed with is Gahiv. Um, a lot of people use him in token decks. I like to use him. Um, Basically 0/0 for 5, but he's not really 0/0 because he comes onto the battlefield with 5+1/+1 counters on him, so he's technically 5/5. You can pay 1 colorless without tapping him to remove a +1/+1 counter from any creature you control to create a +1/+1 or a 1/1 green sapling creature token, or you can pay 1 colorless and not tapping him in order to sacrifice a creature to put a +1/+1 counter on any other target creature you want. So basically, he's an engine in himself. Basically, they don't tap to attack. It does not tap him. He can still attack. He can still do everything, and you can do them at the beginning, ends, and middles anytime you want to because they're just a colorless ability that you can just pump tokens and pump counters out. So this hand is a little slow for this deck, but it's fine. Let's go ahead and play our swamp and end turn, untap, upkeep, draw. Of course, same thing as normal. Got one of our few special lands. Now, of course, this is a tap land. You gotta be careful with them because a lot of tap lands they come into play tapped and they have to return a land you control to your owner's hand. So without those two um, uh, things being true, you cannot play this land. So you have to have a land in play before you can have this in play. So let's go ahead and do that. But it comes into play tapped, and then we're going to send this back to our hand. Okay. And this taps for a black and green instead of black or green. So that's really cool. So it adds 2 mana for 1 land. It does kind of fault you a little bit on the mana upkeep side, but these are really good if you don't have the pain lands or if you don't have a couple of the other types of lands out there that are a lot better than this, but this works just fine for those who are trying to build this on a budget. This deck is kind of expensive the way it is. It's more expensive if you start getting pain lands and other things, fetchy lands and stuff like that. So end, untap, upkeep, draw, mortify. Mortify spot removal for creatures and enchantments is absolutely broken in EDH for 3 mana. Really, really good. Is an instant. Gets rid of those pesky enchantments early on that set other people up for game-winning runs. Um, Sets other people up for. Oh, I forgot to untap. Sets other people's engines up. Sets everything else up. It's just really, really good for just doing this stuff. Okay, let's go ahead and pay 3. Cast a Darksteel Ingot. Darksteel Ingot is indestructible, which means it cannot be destroyed by normal means, and it's an artifact. So Shatter does not work on this. You can bounce it back to opponent's hand, but destroy effects do not affect these. And the only way to basically get rid of this is, like I said, return it to somebody's hand or turn it into a living artifact and then negative negative it, like with the Bane of Living, and then it's gone. They're the only ways to get rid of indestructible things because it doesn't destroy, it's just gone. Um, so yeah, I think that's it. That's that turn. So we'll go end again, untap, and then we'll draw. And now we got Necroplasm. Necroplasm is absurd for 3 mana. Um, At the beginning of your upkeep, put a +1/+1 counter on it. At the end of your end step, destroy each counter with converted mana cost equal to the number of +1/+1 counters on it. And it has Dredge for 2, which if Dredge is if you would draw this card, instead you may put exactly 2 cards from the top of your library into the graveyard. If you do return this card from your graveyard and to your hand, otherwise draw a card. It's absurd what this Ooze does. He's ridiculously good for 3 mana, even though he's 1/1. But at the beginning of your turn, beginning of your upkeep, so at the very beginning of the turn, before you draw your card, he's automatically going to be 2/2. So a little broken. And then automatically that game that starts ticking because now anything you destroy each creature with the converted mana cost equal to number of +1/+1 counters on it. So anything that has a converted mana cost of less than 2 is gone. So it's craziness what this thing can do early in the game, late in the game. You're just gonna blow up fields with this. He's really good, and you can cast, and we can cast him now too. So we have the 3 mana in multiple ways of doing this. But I think we don't have we have a white, we have a black, we have green. We're 1 mana away from casting him. Could technically cast this, but better as a morphy creature. Yeah, I think our best bet is to just do it this way. So he starts as 1/1. There's nothing on the board, so no big deal. Okay. Tap. Upkeep. So now he will get a +1/+1 counter. I'll add it as a green counter, and then we will set power and toughness. As no, cancel. We will increase power and toughness. Now he's 2/2. So there you go. Three mana casting 2/2. I told you it's broken. Okay, so nothing else happens. Oh man, really. Astral Cornucopia is really good. Right now we don't have the mana funnel to do it, but it's really good. XXX, 3 X's. Astral Cornucopia enters the battlefield with X charge counters on it. Choose a color. Add the 1 mana of that color for each charge counter on Astral Cornucopia. So you're literally paying X 3 times. So if you pay 1 and then, well, if you pay 2 for one and then 1 for another one and then another one, it basically starts with, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll start with four mana on it right now if you wanted it to do that. But you want to put a bunch of mana in. It's really good, and you can do it as any 1 mana color that you want for the amount of charge counters are on here. So we could put 4 charge counters on it, put it into play, and then boom, we have access to 4 white mana or 4 blue mana or 4 black mana, 4 red mana, 4 green mana right away, right off the top of the game. Really good for helping your mana. Yeah, see, I'm not going to play Temple of False Gods yet. We only got 2 lands out. You can only do its tap effect if you control 5 or more lands, which also count it, but not worth really dealing with it right now. How many we have in our hand? 7. So yeah, if we're not going to play this, might as well play this. Just to keep ourselves under that 7 round. Alright. Oh, and I forgot to add a counter to him. So we'll add another one. And then we'll power toughness increase again. And of course, you can attack with this. It'd be like, oh, last turn we can attack for 2. Now this turn you can attack for 3. Minding you, you can, at the beginning of your end step, destroy each creature with converted mana cost equal to the number of counters on it. So it will destroy him. Not, because he's got 2. So, yeah. Very interesting. Very broken. Um, so let's go back. In that turn, untap, upkeep, you would add another one. Right? Wait. No. Right, because he had 2 last turn. He has 3 now. Right, so we're looking at this, and now it's 4/4 with 3 mana, with any creatures, including him, of 3 mana gone at the beginning of your end step. So at the beginning of your end step, which is down here, we'll draw a card. That's funny too. We got a lot of black and green going on here. That we'll put this out there. So now you have 2, 4, and 5, 6. We can almost cast her. We just need the blue. All right, and main phase, we don't have. We could attack for 4 if you wanted to. So that'd have been 2 last turn, 2 the first turn, 3 the last turn, 4 this turn. That's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 9 damage in 3 turns. No counters would have been out here. No tokens would have been out here. No creatures of 1 cost or less would have been gone. Anything 2 cost last turn would have been gone. 3 cost now. When you get down to your end phase would be gone. So it does say each creature. It doesn't say uh, your opponents or yours. It just says at the beginning of your end step destroy each creature. So that means everyone. So unfortunately, he would destroy himself. There's no big deal. So you figure that's 9 utility damage you just had on the board that you've meleeed with somebody. You've erased their early game creatures all the way up to a casting cost of 3. Um, and you're pretty much good to roll from here because now you have the ability to cast this guy. It's just broken what you can do right now. Alright, so we're going to untap. Upkeep, there's nothing here anymore. He's gone. So we're going to draw. And now we just got the worst thing ever to draw. Um, Corpse Jack Menace. If one or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature you control, twice that +1/+1 counters are put on it instead. So if you would have had this in, so let me explain how this works. If you would have had this in play and then put this in, the first turn it would have put one and then another, and then one and another, and then one and another. You get it? So it's literally multiplying um your +1/+1 counters. So we did this 2, and then tapped 1 to add 2. That's 4, and put him out. He's 4/4. Now, if at any point if one or more +1/+1 counters be put on a creature you control, twice that many would be put on it instead. This is where it gets crazy. That was main, end phase, untap, upkeep. There's nothing to do. Draw, and then we have a plains. Oops. So the only thing we'd be missing is blue, which we can cast with this. So yeah, we could cast her now. Do we want to cast her now? There's nothing to proliferate. Nah, I think we'll cast him. So if we do this, that's black, green, white, and then 2 colorless, and cast him. Now he comes into play with 10 because he comes into play with 5, and then this guy triggers and says, "Oh, nope, You came in with 1 or more, now double that. So instead of 5, you have 10. So now he's 10-10. Okay, so from a 5-5 to a 10-10 in 1 turn, which is craziness because he's in play. Now, next turn when you come in here, you have all kinds of craziness. So you could play him, gain 10 life because that's 10 toughness. Um, you could have had him out when you had him out. He would have never got killed it, but you know that's 9 life you would have had. All right, let's end, untap, draw, and we got an exotic orchard. Oh boy. Add 1 mana of any color that a land an opponent controls could produce. Obscenely broken um, card. Do. Let's see. Let's go and give ourselves her because that's gonna be broken. Okay, so let's put this in motion. Um, we need black, green, white, and blue, and we'll cast her. Okay, so now at the beginning of our end step, we proliferate, which means that we get to choose any number of permanents and or players and then give them another counter of each kind that are already there. So we can choose Gahiv, who already has +1/+1s, and say, oh, nope, add an additional one. And then that would add another one. So instead of being 10-10, he'd be 12-12. Because you would add one, and then he says, nope, add another one, so add another one. So I would go 11, then 12. Yeah. And plus it counts for these too. So you could proliferate these because it's any amount of permanents to have a counter. So we'll end, untap, upkeep, draw. Dead Ship Reef. Okay. Dead Ship Reef is a treasure land, meaning that it taps to add colorless mana, but then you can pay 1 to tap it to add a counter on it, and then you can pay 1 to remove X amount of storage counters on it to add X amount of black or blue in any combination of those up to the amount of storage counters you take off there. So that's silly. And it counts as a 5th land. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and plus this. Now this adds 2 mana. Okay. So at the beginning of our end step, before we go to end step, we're going to tap the exotic orchard to tap this to put a, let's put a red counter on it. Okay, so you can choose any number. So let's go ahead and do this. So we're going to say, okay, let's add a counter green, add a counter green, because he says anytime one would come in because of her proliferate. And then you would say add a counter red. And now you never have to pay the storage costs unless you want to keep on adding more and more and more and more. And we might as well play this. Okay, sorry about that. So untap, upkeep, draw. Oh boy. Draw a card for each creature with a +1/+1 counter on it. Those creatures gain indestructible until end of turn. So let me explain why this is broken and why this is so crazy. We have Gahiv here who's 12/12, who can pop saplings off for counters. And then sacrifice those saplings for +1/+1 counters on everything we control. Let me show you. So if we pay 2 mana, we have a black and a green sitting in the mana pool. We'll use one and remove a green counter to create a token that's a sapling. Nope, that's not it. It's this one. Okay, so we created a sapling, right? Who's 1/1. Now we have this extra one, and we're going to remove this by sending it to our hand. And add a +1/+1 counter here. Now this also counts for him. We'll add another one. Right, and we'll do it again. To colorless, we'll use this as colorless. And we'll say, okay. Move a green counter. Create another token. Sacrifice the token. And we'll put it here. So now you see how this is getting crazy, because now at the end step, right, at the end step, we're going to be able to proliferate all of these and add more. And it just keeps on going. So the two we just took off, we're going to proliferate right back. We're going to choose this one, add another counter to this. Choose this one, add a counter to her. Choose this one, add a counter to her. We could easily take another counter off here. We'd be one less than what we were, but we'd still have an 11/11. And I'll attack now, attack for 10. Then go to main 2, pay 2 more mana, and take another counter off, make another sapling, sacrifice the sapling, put the counter on him, and now you have 4 creatures that have +1/+1 counters on them. So now when you cast Inspiring Call next turn, that's 4 cards. Yeah, broken. So let's go ahead and just blah 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 blah. Go to main 2. We gotta pay 2 mana, so we'll tap this for 1. We'll tap this for 1, leaving 3 mana, 4 mana actually. All 3 mana, because you have to pay 1 in order to remove counters. And then move a green counter, so he's down to 9. And then create a token. And then go and sacrifice that token. And add 2 counters to this. Oops, not a yellow. Oh, I forgot. At the beginning of end step, you had to proliferate. So, we'll add 2 more here. 2 more there. There. 2 more there. 2 more there. So yeah, you can see how crazy this is already, and we're not even into the craziness of what this deck can do. And you can see we got 2, we got 4 here. That's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You got at least 13 mana that you can cast Cornucopia for. You'd probably do it for 12 just to have 3, 3, 3, 3, to have 6 altogether. And we just got a Sunstep. that comes into play tap, but it adds one of white, black, or green, whatever one you want. So yeah, now we could cast Inspiring Call. Inspiring Call is going to be a green. One more. So let's go and use this one. And we'll cast Inspiring Call. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 cards we get to draw. So we'll draw 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh boy, did we draw some craziness. Okay, let me explain what we got. So first card we got Ancient Excavation. Draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand, then discard a card for each card drawn this way. Or you can basic land cycle it for 2. So you pay 2 mana, discard a card, discard, and then search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. This is a great mana fixer. It's also a great way to draw cards. We don't need to draw right now because we just drew 4 from Inspiring Call. Spitting Image. Disgusting. Of course, you would not want to make a clone of any of these guys because they're legendaries. They would kill each other. But make a copy of this. Now you have 2 of them. So now it doubles the double, the double. You get it? So basically, this one would trigger, then the other one would trigger. So instead of, if one would come in, instead of getting 1 plus 1, you get 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. Because you got 1, made 1, that's 2. So 2 becomes 4. You doubled it. And then retraces, you can cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a land card in addition to paying its other costs. So you could pay a blue or green and 4 colorless, and then discard a land card from your hand to play this again from your graveyard, which is silliness. Commander Spear, great staple card, 3 colorless, add 1 mana of any color in your commander's identity, which is your CMC. And then you can sacrifice it to draw a card if you want. Simple, explanatory, just a way to gain mana of colors that you don't have. So like, we don't have any way to get blue right now, other than this. This helps with your mana fixing. Soulbounder, oh boy, comes into battlefield with X+1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of other creatures on the battlefield. You can pay a white and 2 colorless to remove a +1/+1 counter from it to create a 1/1 spirit creature with flying. So, in a sense, what you would do here is you would play this, get the blue mana, because then you have access to blue. And then you would, in turn, come back to the next turn, cast this to gain another one of these, and then play this guy to to have double the counters that he comes into play. It's going to be silly, trust me. So we're going to play that out. So let's go ahead and do, so this is 2, that makes 3. So we're going to play this. That's fine. Do we have anything else we can play right now? I don't think so. If we needed to get rid of something, we could potentially, but it's not necessary. We're down to 7, so we don't have to worry about discarding anything. So yeah, we should be good here. Praetor's Voice will activate at the end step, so end step, add a counter, add a counter, add a counter, add a counter. Oops, not a yellow one. So So he's 10-10. This one's 13-13. This is 10-10. And 3, 4, so that's 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's 9, 9, 13. So you have 20, 33, 30, that's 20, 29, 20, 33. We have 42 damage on the board with just what we have here. It's absurd. And it's about to be worse. So let's go ahead and untap, upkeep. There's no upkeeps here. Draw our card. Solidarity of Heroes. It has Strive. So basically, you pay 1 green and 1 colorless, and then you pay an additional 1 green and 1 colorless more for each target beyond the first target. And then you can choose any target creature you want of yours or whoever's, and double the +1/+1 counters on each of them. So basically, if you cast this and choose him, he'll have 12. But then you can say, oh, well, I'll play it and I can choose them all as long as I pay the mana for it. So yeah, it's going to be disgusting because we have this set up now where we're going to play Spitting Image, and then Spitting Image is going to make another one of him, and then every time a +1/+1 counter comes in, not only does it get +1 more, it gets an additional more. So 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4. So yeah, it's going to be silly. And then remember, on top of it, she makes one too, so that's 8 a turn as long as there's 2 of these in play. Yeah, it's silly. It's broken. And you can continually take these, well, it's going to be 4 a turn, but you take these off and then you can make sapling tokens and put +1/+1 counters on anything you want. And then you're going to have this guy come in with a whole slew of +1/+1 counters, because with him in play, when you cast this, there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 creatures in play. It says other, so it doesn't count him. So that'd be 10. He'd be a 10-10 right off the top, of the game, just to come out here and play around. Let's go and cast Spinning Image because this is silliness. So we'll do this for blue. We'll do this for blue. So that's our 2 blue. 2, 3, 4. So we're gonna cast a Spinning Image, and we're gonna make another one of these. And we're gonna have to set his power and toughness to 4/4. Okay. So Spinning Image goes in the graveyard. And now there's 2 Corpse Jack Menace on the battlefield. It does not copy the counters on them already. So, and it's a token. So we could technically, oh, this is counter, so it's proliferate. It's not the other one. Gotcha. It's a token. It's silliness. A token getting tokens. Hold on. All right, let me explain how this happened. So what happened was is we had two of these in play, which effectively doubles the double. So he would have came in. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 before we made this. There's 5 creatures in play, which makes him create 5 tokens. This triggers making 10 tokens, and then this triggers making 20 tokens because 10 times 10 is 20. Well, 10 plus 10 is 20. So, well, 10 times 2 is 20. So you're looking at 20 token. He's at 2020. And we made it, and then I made a, a, a sapling token so that next turn, even though we're not going to be able to do much with him right now because we don't have any more mana to deal with, but next turn we'll be able to pop him, put a +1/+1 counter on him, which would be 2, which would end up being 4, and then Praetor's Voices. Yeah, you can see how this gets absurd really, really quickly. And I'm not even going through all the steps because at the end of every end step, we can sit there and proliferate. There's no you choose. No, at the beginning of your end step, proliferate. You choose any number. So you proliferate, but you can choose 0 if you want to. So we'll just say we've been doing that for now. But technically, you could be proliferating these and this for the last couple of turns and just keep on jacking up your counters and just keep on going and going and going and going and going, and they become ridiculously huge really, really fast. So that's basically what this whole entire idea is. I'm going to play a few more through here. I'm not going to proliferate just because it'll get absurd with how much these guys would be without attacking. I mean, technically, you'd be on the aggressive side attacking people with the craziness that you have going on here. Um, and we just got it worse. Oh boy. Uh, this guy is broken beyond belief and kind of expensive, but worth the money if you can find him. Um, Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature and +1/+1 counter on him. So whenever something comes out into play, you pop a +1/+1 counter on it and one on him. It's ridiculous with what we got going on right now because you figure, oh, we can remove a +1/+1 counter from Gaheeve to add a sapling. Well, that sapling comes into play. Put a +1/+1 counter on the sapling. Put another +1/+1 counter on the sapling. That's two. Plus, put two more. Now every sapling is 5/5. And guess what? You get one on him because the sapling came into play. Plus another one. Plus two more because that's now you're talking about a six whatever. Yeah, it gets ridiculous what you can do. And don't forget, you have Ikra here, who says whenever a creature does damage to somebody, guess what? You gain life equal to that creature's toughness. So if you go up there and smack somebody with this 20/20, you gain 20 life. Um, you gain 10 life. You gain 12 life. You gain 10 life. And if you attacked with everybody and dealt damage with everybody, you would gain 10, 12, 10, plus 13, plus 20. Yeah, it's a lot of life to gain, and it has menace, which means you can't block it except for green and black creatures. So if you're playing with against anybody who doesn't have green and black, they're in a bad spot. Bad spot with that. And with this, it just gets worse because now it's like, oh, okay, well, every time a creature comes into play, it's gonna be crazy. Not that it's already not crazy. You just keep on multiplying the multiplier to multiplier. You just keep on multiplying the multiplier. It this deck gets out of hand. And we haven't even got the crazy stuff yet. This is a little broken compared to what I guess normal people would be um, saying for these decks, especially with saplings and stuff. Well, with tokens in general. Right now, we're just dealing with one facet of the token side. We're only generating +1/+1 counters. Um, we also generate a ton of tokens in here as well. Um, but we haven't got the engine to necessarily do that other than the Gaheeve down here. So yeah, we'll play him because it's broken not to. Boom, there you go. Now he's in play. And then we can tap this one here and we can send this off to Never Never Land to go and add a token to this guy. And because we add a token to him, we would add 2. And because we're adding 2, we would add 4. So let's go ahead and add 4. Bang. There you go. And now he's 8/8. Yeah, it gets broken really really quickly with what you're you're able to sit here and just keep on multiplying your multipliers. You know, it gets crazy with what you're talking about here, and you still have the ability to sit there, and if you get a land card in hand, you can play this again and make another one of these. So it'd be 2, 4, and then 6. Well, 2, 4, then 8. Because you're multiplying the multiplier. It gets crazy. So like for every one of these now, when you pop out a counter, you're gonna get 4 +1/+1 counters on this guy. And you're going to get 4 +1/+1 counters on a sapling token when it comes into play. Then on top of it, if you do get a land and play this again out of your graveyard, then you would get 8 on each one. I'm really hoping we get to draw the other part of this engine. We didn't. This is great too, because you could technically use this to cast your, say she got killed somehow, somebody mortified it or destroyed her. You could cast her again because she's in your commander zone with this, and she gets an additional +1/+1 counter on it for the number of times that she's been cast from the command zone with this card. So the first time she's automatically coming out with 1, and if you have this in play, that's 2. Now it's 4. She's automatically crazy now. She's automatically 8/8 that flies, has lifelink, death touch, and vigilance. Doesn't tap to attack. Gains life every time it attacks your opponent. And on top of it, anything they try to block it with automatically dies. It has death touch. And you can even say like, oh well, I don't really need to worry about it. My opponent's pretty well locked down with what I have on the board. I'm controlling the board out to the point where I don't have to worry about this coming out to play. They're not playing a color that can completely wipe the board. Hey, you got a card that says you can sit there and retrace it if you want to discard the Opal Palace. Cast it again. Add a third Corpjack Menace onto the battlefield. There's so many different ways that you can just keep on breaking the calculator, so to speak, in this deck. Because now instead of 2, instead of 4, it'd be 8 per. I'm just gonna keep on doing this for a minute. Murmuring Bosk. Sun Petal Grove is great. Comes in and play tapped unless you control a forest or plains, but it taps to add green or white mana. Murmuring Bosk, it adds green mana to tap than normally. It enters the battlefield. You can reveal a Tree Folk card from your hand, and if you don't, then it enters the battlefield tapped. But you can. We don't have any Tree Folk in our hand, so whatever. And then you can tap it to add white or black. And if you do that, it deals 1 damage to you for a white or a black. So yeah. Main and can I draw this? Oh my god, really? Ah boy, this legendary creature. Prevent all damage to be dealt to all creatures tokens you control. Yes. Just gonna draw a couple. Alright. Well, I don't need to draw more. But Nisa, crazy planeswalker in here. Put a 0/1 green plant creature on the battlefield. Boom, there you go. You got all kinds of craziness that you can do with tokens. -2 her to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. You got plenty of those. The funny thing is, proliferate can target those counters as loyalty counters on it as well. So you can keep on adding them, and then yeah. -7, you gain X life and draw X cards, where X is the number of lands you control. Just broken, but we're gonna break this crazily. All right, we got Diabolic Tutor. Diabolic Tutor basically is a tutor. Lets you search whatever the frig you want, put in your hand, and then good to roll. 1 black and 1 colorless. Let's add 1 colorless to tap that. 1 black and 1 colorless, and we'll cast this. And we're going to get the thing So basically we have Asban Falconer basically sits there and says it has Outlast. Outlast, you pay 1 white and tap it, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, which means itself. And then each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has flying, so all your shit would have flying. Champion of Lampholt, creatures with power less than its power can't block it. Well, block creatures you control, actually. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Yeah, broken. Crystalline Crawler, great 4 cost, has Converge. When it enters the battlefield with +1/+1 counter for each color of mana spent to cast it. So if you spend 4 different colors of mana to cast it, it gives +4/+4. And then you can remove a +1/+1 counter to add 1 mana of any color you want. Yeah. And then you can also tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on it. Deep Glow Skate. Basically, when it enters the battlefield, you double the number of each kind of counter on any number of target permanents. Point blank, just double everything. Elite Scale Guard, whenever it comes in the battlefield, you bolster to bolster. You get to choose a creature with the least toughness among creatures you control and put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever a creature a +1/+1 counter on it attacks, you tap a creature your opponent controls. Enduring Scale Lord basically flies whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on another creature you control, you may put 1 counter on it. Yeah. Fathom Mage basically has evolved whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control. If that creature has greater power and toughness than it does, put a +1/+1 on it. Whenever a +1/+1 counter is put on it, you draw a card. Forgotten Ancient. Basically, whenever a player plays a spell, you may put a +1/+1 counter on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may remove any number of +1/+1 counters from it onto another creature, which is great because it has 3 toughness, so you can remove all the +1/+1 counters without worrying about killing it. Hero Bladehold is literally a win condition in this game, in this deck. 4 costing 3/4 that has Battlecry, and Battlecry says whenever it attacks, anything that attacks with it other than itself gets +1/+0 until end of turn. And on top of it, when it attacks, it puts 2 +1/+1. It puts 2/1/1 white soldier tokens onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking with her. So she literally comes into play, 3/4 attacks. That's 3 damage from her. Puts 2/1/1 white soldiers. They automatically get the battle cry. They become 2/1s. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 damage. And she does that every time she attacks. Yeah, broken. She is beyond broken. I don't care. Flies. Forecasting cost 1/1. Seems bad, but not. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, put a +1/+1 counter on it. It has partner. There's your partner stuff again. Colonial Hydra, broken beyond broken belief. Has trample. Comes into play with 4 +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever it attacks, double the number of +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. Yes, broken. Master Pyromancer. Each creature you control enters the battlefield with a additional +1/+1 counter on it, equal to the Master Pyromancer's power, and is a mutant in addition to its types. Revlark is just broken, allows you to return cards with 2 or power 2 less from your graveyard instantaneously, has Evoke, which means you can cast a spell for creatures that you sacrificed. Rehand is broken beyond belief. Comes on the battlefield with 3+1/+1 counters on it whenever a creature you control dies or is put into the commander zone. If it had one or more +1/+1 counters on it, you put that many +1/+1 counters on target creature. So if they were to kill Praetor's Voice, and Praetor's Voice has 6 +1/+1 counters on it, if it were to happen to get killed or removed to the commander zone, you can put those 6 +1/+1 counters wherever the frig you want. Scavenging Ooze is great. Early game monster, likes to eat your opponent's graveyard. Every time you eat opponent's graveyard card, it gets a +1/+1 counter and you gain a life. Great. Seaboard Muse, broken beyond belief. Basically, at the beginning of your opponent's untap step and every other opponent's, if you're playing multiples, you untap all your permanents. That means your lands, everything, untap automatically. Creatures, everything. Neb is broken beyond belief in here. Flying deals combat damage to a player. You may pay black and 2 colorless. If you do, you may put a target creature from the graveyard into the battlefield. Yes. Any graveyard under your control, you steal your opponent's shit. If you don't have a Scavenging Ooze out there. And then you just make it obscene. Tuskar Captain, basically the same as the white version. You get an Outlast of green, put +1/+1 counters on it, and then everybody who has a +1/+1 counter has trample. Vishkar is a win condition in numerous decks. Is again here. Has flying, has lifelink. You can sacrifice a creature, put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number as the sacrifice creature's power. Remove all the +1/+1 counters to target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each +1/+1 counter removed this way. So basically, go kill shit and then kill somebody else because it's broken. For all in this deck is absurd. For a green and a blue, tap her, double the number of each kind of counter on target artifact, creature, or land. Yeah, double them. So if we had her out, this would become 12. This would become 40. This would become 8. This would become 12. And then on top of it, you're doubling that. Vulturous Zombie. Whenever Vulturous Zombie is put into an opponent's whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, doesn't matter from where, so your Mortifies, your Dune Blasts, you put a +1/+1 counter on him. Broken. Wayfaring Temple, another broken card. Power toughness equal to the number of creatures you control, where you can control tons. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, populate. This is key here because with the ability to populate, you can create tokens of another token. Now the Corp Jack Menace, because we use splitting image here, is a token. And if you put in another one, you'd have another token. And then with him, every time you dealt damage with him, you'd create another token. So you just keep on multiplying the multiplier till it's absurd and broken. Primal Vigor here is just a complete, no-brainer for the deck. If one or more tokens would be put into the battlefield, double it.